Okay, hello. We are live, and I love this. Whew. Hello and welcome to the Global Youth Mental Health Awareness Show, where we have open conversations with the youth about mental health. I'm your host, KATINDA, the author of The Big Comeback and founder of the Confidence and Self-Esteem Academy. In today's show, we are so blessed to have three amazing panelists. And our first panelist is Elizabeth, Dr. Elizabeth Njani. Elizabeth is a mental health specialist. Hello and welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Thank you, KATINDA.
Thank you and welcome. Our second panelist is Edith Wanyonyi. Edith is a GYMHA ambassador and a counseling psychologist. Edith has been on a lot of these shows and she's obviously always here. So let's welcome Edith to the show. Hello and welcome.
Thank you so much, KATINDA. It's always a pleasure being here.
Now we have a third panelist who's not here yet, whose name is Sunday Effiong. So we'll introduce him as he comes along. And before we start this conversation today, I always like to really know how we're feeling today. How are we feeling? Dr. Elizabeth, you can tell me how you're feeling. Tell the viewers how you're feeling right now.
I'm feeling, I'm feeling excited to be in this group today and to have been picked to do this work on loss and grief. I think it is a coincidence because we are having so many cases of loss in our country as a result of COVID-19. And I am also handling a number of them. And I said, wow, what a coincidence. So I am excited to be here. I'm a little bit anxious, but I know it will go with time.
You'll be good. You'll be good.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for telling us how you're feeling. Edith, please unmute yourself. Tell us how you're feeling this afternoon, or this evening for me, this afternoon for you.
Okay, I'm feeling excited and a bit of, I just have mixed feelings because of the topic that we have ahead of us. And also because, yesterday we received the news of the loss of the president of Tanzania. So I felt like it was quite a coincidence that we are having this topic today. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for telling us how you feel too. So today in our conversation, we got the guests, Dr. Elizabeth and Edith will be giving us some insights on loss and grief. And as Elizabeth said, and as Edith said, what a coincidence that this is happening at one of those times when everybody knows someone, a family, a friend who is either going through grief, maybe, there's so much going on and they need a lot of healing. So welcome to the show, and let's get this show started. And now what I wanted to do today, because we're talking about grief and loss, before we started the conversation, I wanted us to hold the space and take a moment to hold and honor and be silent, and to honor the people who've departed, to honor the families or the friends who are grieving from all different type of losses, because loss is not just one thing, it's a lot of different things. So I just want us to take a minute to just stay silent and honor everyone that is watching this today, who has a family member who's grieving, who has a departed soul, just everything. So we just take 1 minute before we start the show. Thank you. Okay. So, Elizabeth, what is grief? How would you explain that?
Well, KATINDA, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be the first to talk about grief. And to all our listeners, welcome to this sorrowful topic. It is not something that we really like discussing based on different factors. And one more so like what we call our culture and our religion, because we don't talk about the departed. But when we look at this, it is one of the mental health issues that is very, very crucial for us, and we cannot do away with it. So when we look at what grief is, we are saying that grief is a natural response to any kind of loss. And when we say the emotional response to the experience of loss, we also remind ourselves that it is very, very personal. It is not universal. Very, very personal, because the way we express it, the way we even interact with it, the way we experience it is very, very individualized. So grief is a natural response to the experience of loss. It can be emotional, physical, social, and all together they create this kind of impact that we are saying the emotional experience to a loss.
Edith, what would you like to add to that?
Okay, I'd like to say that grief I'd like to say that grief, like Daktari has told us, it's natural, and it is the emotional pain that we feel after we've gone through a loss maybe of someone, or a loss of something that is very significant to us. And grief can be very overwhelming, and you're likely to experience different and unexpected emotions. So you'll feel that sometimes you're not even able to sleep, to eat, and it becomes very heavy and very overwhelming sometimes. So I remember, like, when I lost my dad about in 2012, I was a third-year student by then. So I remember feeling this so much pain that I can't even explain. So yeah, that's what grief is.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, so, you're talking about grief. So what is loss, and what are the different types of loss? Dr. Elizabeth, did you want to tackle that one?
Yes, we are saying grief is an emotional response to a loss. And the question we are asking ourselves now is, what is loss? And I say that loss is deprivation of something that you hold dear, that has a significant meaning to you. It can be something tangible, it can be something intangible. And the relationship you have with that something or somebody is, and the person, like through death, you lose the person through death, or you lose something like a property, an item that is very dear to you. That is what we are calling loss. And as you have asked, we are also saying that there are different types of losses. And one of them is what I have said, tangible loss, something that is very personal to you, like you can feel it, you can see it. Like we have people who have lost their body parts as a result of accident, like they have lost sight, they have lost hearing. There is an issue of loss of mental capacity, which again is also a very significant loss. And when we are talking about even in the course of our development, for example, we want to grow as functional adults in all areas. And if you go to a hospital and you are told you are infertile, there is this what we call infertility. That is a loss to you. Again, you'll find that loss of health. There is that loss of health. You were well, now today you are sick, you have been diagnosed with a chronic illness or a terminal illness. This is a loss to a person, and we are classifying it under the tangible loss. We can also look at the interpersonal loss, and here we are talking about relational issues. We are talking about a relationship, and here we start with the friends and those people who we have gotten into relationship with, who are very, very dear to us, very close to us, like it is a spouse, you have separation, divorce. This is a relational kind of loss. We can also talk about the symbolic loss, and this comes in terms of growth and development. And for example, as we are growing up, there are those milestones that we have to achieve. And when we lose our milk teeth, this is quite significant to that 5-year-old. And they really mourn, they go through a process. So, and also you feel that it is quite significant to you. There is also loss of like people who have experienced molestation, and there is loss, what we call loss of virginity. As a result of this molestation, it is also quite significant for a person. And also another one I don't want to forget to mention is what we call the role redefinition. For example, we have children who have not grown as children because they were either parentified or they became leaders of a family at a very early stage. So they lost their childhood because of one reason or the other. This is quite symbolic for them, and you'll find that it is quite significant. And even as adults, they keep going through the mourning process for the same. I think I stop there. I give my colleague an opportunity to talk about the other kinds of losses.
You know, Elizabeth, I'm just a bit, overwhelmed with some of the information, because I think a lot of people watching, we automatically, lost with, like, I'm talking for myself, but I know if I feel this way, I'm sure a lot of people feel the same. We don't actually think of the depth of that word loss. We think loss is when maybe like the relationship or friendship losses, or when you lose a person to death. We know about that, but you never care to think about the loss of body parts or loss of your freedom, or like you said about how children happen to be like in control from a very young age, so they lost their childhood. That is so profound. And I hope if you're watching this as viewers, those are some of the things you can actually be aware of, because maybe it happened to you, and if it has, what you need to do to start the healing process. So Edith, what would you like to add onto that?
Thank you so much. I know Daktari has already said it all, but what I'd say is loss is when something is involuntarily taken away from you. So most of the time, we can relate loss to grief because it is the most intense type of loss. But like Daktari has said, we have so many types of losses, even miscarriages, like loss of job, so many other that she has mentioned. And so we as people should not like feel ashamed to grieve any type of loss that we have, because like she also mentioned before, loss is very personal. And so like we should not feel ashamed and only feel like we need to grieve certain things and we don't need to grieve some other things, because also society has made us feel like some things are not to grieve for. But it's very important to note that grief is very personal and every loss is valid. Thank you very much.
Okay, we just lost Xavier. I think he joined, he's disappeared again. So we'll just wait and see if I was about to introduce him, but he's disappeared. Thank you, Edith, for that. You know what? I'm thinking this topic today is really going to bring up some things for a lot of people, things that they haven't considered and that probably they will need to start seeing because we haven't considered some of these options. Thank you, Xavier. I'll just need to introduce you, Xavier, because you're back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, KATINDA. Good morning from Nigeria.
Good afternoon, good evening. We're talking about loss now that you've joined us, and we were talking about the different types of losses and what is actually loss. So do you have anything you might like to add? I'm not sure if you heard what Dr. Elizabeth and Edith said.
Okay, good morning, everyone from Nigeria. I have to apologize sincerely for joining quite late. I've been having a lot of network issues over here. My apologies. Well done, Dr. Elizabeth. Though I wasn't able to log in earlier to hear what you said, but I believe you made really good, a point. So from my own point of view, grief, or let me start by loss. Loss is simply, an art of losing something dear to you. You losing something very important to you, and grief is naturally, a response to losing something important to you. So you lost, might be you've lost your phone, you've lost your job, you've lost someone who is a loved one to you. But grief now is the natural response. Grief now is a natural response, following the laws which has come in. So there are different types of loss. As I mentioned earlier, we have kinds of breakups. We have divorce, loss of job, loss of dear one, separation in the family, miscarriage, and a whole lot of them. So there are many types of loss, and then grief is just a natural way of of respond.
Okay, I think you're having network problems. Okay, we'll just continue with the next question here. So is there a specific way to grieve?
Okay, I think I should go with that first.
Go for it.
Can you hear me over there?
Yes, I
Hello,
can.
KATINDA, can you hear me over there?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. So, okay, fine. So I don't think there is any specific way to grieve. I would say that grieving, really relies on personal.
Okay. He's really got a lot of network issues there.
Yeah,
Okay,
sorry about that.
But that's okay. So I think we'll just keep going. If he comes back, he can. So, oh, we're back again. Okay. Okay, Xavier.
Oh, sorry, I'm really having a lot of network issues over here. The weather is really dull here, so that's the reason why network is fluctuating. Sorry about that. My apologies.
That's okay.
Okay, so as I was saying, grief. I don't think there is a specific way to grieving. So I would say that it really relies on personal differences, individual differences, cultural differences, and all that. So personally, I might choose, to due to my understanding of grief and maybe let me say my intellectual capacity, I might really understand that there is a big difference between grief and depression, and then too much of grieving would lead to depression. So I try to strike a balance between the way I mourn my lost one and the way others will do. So individual differences has a really great role to play here. So speaking about cultural differences as well, different cultures has their own different ways of grieving, or mourning for their lost one or whatever they lose. So cultural differences also has a role to play, and it differs from one culture to the other. So in a nutshell, to me, there is no perfect way of grieving. Thank you.
Okay, so Dr. Elizabeth, would you like to give us some more in terms of is there a specific way to grieve?
Yes, I concur with Xavier that there is no specific way to grieve, and there is no script to be followed in grieving. This is a process. It is not a one-time off thing that when we lose a person, and I would like to focus on this in relation to the death of a loved one, and say that it is not a one-off thing. It is a process, and you start from the day you get this information that you have lost a loved one, and it goes on. So you find that we at times we keep confusing the grieving and the mourning. And again, as he has said, there are factors that influence the way you grieve, the time you take, and even the duration of time. And one he has mentioned is the cultural background. Your culture dictates, your religion also influences, your social status or the social status of the person, also the relationship you had with the deceased, and your own personality. You find that this impact the way you grieve and even the period of time that you take. Thank you.
I think we've got some noise in the background. Please just unmute. When you're not speaking, please unmute yourself, just because there's a lot of background noise. Now we've got here, somebody's got a lot of noise in the background. I'm not sure who that is. Okay, sounds good. So we've got Dr. Mahesh Niban says, I'm sure homeopathic medicine works on grief. What would you like to say about that, Dr. Elizabeth?
Hello, I did hear the comment.
Okay, so there's a comment on the screen. I don't know, somebody's got background noise. I'm not sure whether it's...
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. So Dr. Mahesh Niban says, I'm sure homeopathic medicine works on grief. What are your thoughts on that?
When we are talking about grief, it is not all everybody who reaches that level of using any medicine or medication or even psychotherapy, because as we said, it is very individualized, and it depends on the we are asking ourselves, when would you need help, so that you are able to be assisted. And that will help us by looking at the type of griefs. And we say there is the normal grief that takes, what we would say normal, a person is still functioning. But when we have what we call pathological grief, it means the person will need more help. It can even go to medication, because depression may set in, anxiety and other conditions, so that we prevent development of what we call the post-acute stress disorder or post-traumatic stress disorder. And therefore, homeopathic medication may work for some people and may not work for the other person. So we cannot say that it is generally a prescription for a person who is going through grieving, but it can work for one person and not work for the other one.
Elizabeth and Xavier, you also mentioned about grief and mourning. What is the two differences between those two? Because I think most people would like to know the difference between grief and mourning. Can you hear me?
Xavier would like to go first.
Yeah, okay. Xavier, can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you, though my network is really fluctuating over here. So,
that's okay.
When we speak about mourning, can you hear me? Can you hear me, KATINDA?
We can hear you, yes. We can hear you.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Great. So, to my understanding, I'll say that mourning, embodies more pathetic responses to losing someone, or to the great loss in which one might experience, whereas grief might really be a less intense or less severe form of it. I would say it's a more civilized form of of showing empathy or sympathizing with the loss in which we have. So, when we talk about mourning, over here in Nigeria, it can, some people tend to, sleep in ash, wear sackcloth, cover themselves with charcoals and never take bath all through for a week or a month or so. And then some, go that far of shaving their hair with razors or with bottles, broken bottles. So that's the worst state of it, and we refer to it as mourning over here. Whereas grieving, is a milder form of it, or to the elite over here, they might just, tend to maybe shed some tears for some moments, and just be sad, and at some point, and over time they are over it. So that's the distinction in terms of Nigerian aspect or perspective between grieving and mourning. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Dr. Elizabeth, did you want to add anything on that?
Yes. Earlier we said that grief is the process of responding to the pain as a result of loss. And we say we are talking about the emotional experience, emotional pain that you are going through. That is the response. When we come to mourning, you're saying it is a process that describes how an individual adjusts to the loss. And it serves specific purposes, one of them being helping people to accept the reality of the loss. It also helps you to adjust to life without the person being physically present. It is also, it serves the purpose of helping you to experience the pain of the grief, because here is where our problem starts. When we block the pain of grief, then we have a problem. So we have to evaluate how your mourning process is so that we find out where are you stuck. And we are also saying that it also helps you to find new ways or to remain connected to the person who has died. And here, as Sevia has said, it is contextualized in a very different way based on our culture, our religion, our values and belief systems. And therefore, at the end of the day, we are saying the mourning process serves this purpose, but the grief is this emotional experience we have of the pain of loss. So that is the distinction.
Wow, thank you so much. Now I see this. Barbara Howard asks a question here. Can one migraine because of grief? So I'm assuming she's talking about when you have a migraine, can that be as a result of grief? Dr. Elizabeth, do you want to answer that one?
Okay, that takes us to the impact of grief, and we are saying that we said it is individualized and it can affect the person across all the spheres, and the presentation of grief is significant to each individual. It can be physical, it can be emotional, it can be social, and also spiritual. Like when we talk about physical, you find that the person neglects themselves, they no longer take care of themselves, they lose appetite, they develop insomnia and other psychosomatic conditions, fatigue and migraine being one of them. So we cannot rule out, and remember, we express it differently because we are different, as we said earlier. So migraine and fatigue fall under the physical way of expressing ourselves or as a presentation of grief. So when we look at the emotional, you find that the person goes through denial. They can be angry, they can be sad, you know, all the emotions, we call it the emotional turmoil, the roller coaster that they go through. And therefore, at the end of the day, we are asking ourselves, how long is this going to take place? Or is the person able to adjust with these all waves that and cycles that he or she is going through?
Wow, amazing, amazing. I hope that answered your question. Now, before we continue, if you've just joined us, we're talking about loss and grief. So please share, comment, and invite your friends to watch. And if you're going through grief, there is in Australia, we have a grief hotline, which is the 1300-845-745. So please, if you need any support in Australia, that is the number, 1300-845-745. Now, as we continue, there's also the question of how long is someone supposed to grieve? Is there a time frame, or it's just until it's an individual thing, depending on how how you heal and how all the things that happen around you? Well, how long does it take, and how long can people expect to heal from this? Edith, you want to tackle that one?
Okay. What I'd say about that is there's no right or wrong way to grieve, because like we said, grief is very personal and very individual, and so it depends with many factors. So I'd say that there's a specific time frame of grieving, but what I'd say is there are positive coping mechanisms as well as some people have negative coping mechanisms. Even as we are grieving, we need to cope positively. Yeah, thank
Elizabeth, do you want to add anything to that? How long is someone supposed to grieve for, or what do we expect when we're grieving?
Just like we said earlier that there is no specific way to grieve, even the period of time is not specific. We don't have a specific time. However, you'll find that in some cultures, they dictate the activities you do when you are mourning or when you have grief, what you are supposed to do, how you are supposed to do it. Some are not even allowed to get out of the house. You are told you have to be inside the house for 40 days, others it is 4 months, 10 days, others it is 3 months. And you find that whether you are given those specific days or not, you cannot say that you are through with your grief because you are given those specific days. So there is no specific length of time that we say this is what is supposed to be done or to be followed. So again, we say no right or wrong or a period of time that you can go through it. It is also individualized.
Thank you. Thank you. Xavier, did you want to add anything to that? How long is one supposed to grieve?
Okay, thank you for this opportunity. I would still like to build on what Dr. Elizabeth just said. There is no specific time to grieve. However, as we mentioned earlier, cultural differences and individual differences has a very large role to play here. Speaking about the cultural differences, like in Nigeria over here, it is believed that a person should spend ample days, months, to mourn for a loved one. For instance, now the wife, loses the husband. So a tradition will believe that the wife should at least mourn the husband for 3 months before even stepping out, and should at least stay for a year before getting married to another man. So it differs in cultures, and I believe in the Western world such would not have happened there. So there's this cultural differences, and it really has a very large role to play, and also individual differences play a large role. I see leverage on the civilization of people. The civilized ones might really know how to handle these very easily as compared to those in the rural areas. Their level of intelligence and intellect is quite different. Understanding grief and knowing the distinction between grief and depression. So I really believe that the educated ones would really know that too much of grieving could possibly lead to depressive moments. So I think they will strike a balance between both of them. So in general, there is no specific time for grieving, but we should always take notes. We should always watch out for depression during those times. Thank you.
Thank you, Xavier. Thank you, Xavier. So what are some of the symptoms of grief? Yes, Edith.
I wanted to say on the previous question that you asked, that I find it very insensitive when people try to dictate like the period in which you are supposed to grieve, and people are telling you that you need to move on with life, like you need to be strong. Like if you ignore the pain, it will go away. And I find it very insensitive because they don't they are not taking care of your emotions at that particular time. So I think it's important to just let people be as they grieve in the best way they know how to. Yeah.
It's an interesting point, because I think a lot of people probably do it out of not knowing, because they're not feeling your pain, and that's why probably they think if you're grieving for so long, people think what else can we do to help you. So maybe it's just lack of knowledge, which is amazing, because in this show today, you're going to give us the insight, and you're going to just open people's awareness in terms of all these things as well. So moving forward, Elizabeth, you were talking about some symptoms of grief, like you talk about maybe the migraine or just certain things happen. So what can you just give us in depth? What are the symptoms of grief?
When a person is experiencing a loss, It comes with a different kind of impact for each particular person. We may have lost a loved one who we share like blood sisters, blood brothers, and you find that our experiences are quite different. And the first thing that comes in is shock, that you have lost your loved one. And this shock may be presented in different ways. One may go numb, the other one may start screaming and yelling, even running away, or you take off because it is too much for the system, because again it touches on the part of our brain that is responsible for the what we call the 3 F's, the flee, flight, and fight, and it is activated, and therefore you respond in a specific way. There are those who will go into denial and they keep thinking no, in their head it's like they block. And these two serve a purpose at the beginning. It is like they act like buffers to reduce the intensity of pain that comes with the loss. And you find that as time goes on, you find that now you start experiencing the impact of this loss. It could be physical, you lose appetite, like I said earlier. When you go to sleep, you have what we call insomnia. You are not able to sleep. Again, you develop other health conditions like what I say, the psychosomatic, the headaches, the migraine, the fatigue. The whole body is tired. You are so restless. Again, there are those who have got like their hollow stomach. Others may even end up diarrheaing, even nausea. These are physical, and they are associated with this kind of loss, the pain that you are going through. Then when we look at the emotional, I mentioned about the issue of sadness, you have a sense of guilt. It is like you didn't do much to help this person. And like now you're having the impact of COVID-19 and you lose a loved one as a result of challenges in breathing. You feel like you'd have done better than what you did, and therefore you start blaming yourself or blaming another person. Then you develop anger, and anger can be directed to yourself, to the person who has gone, to the medics, to other people, like if it is the systems that are charged with the responsibility of taking care of the sick. You can even be angry with your supreme being like God. And this one is justified for that particular moment. You also develop things like fear. And the fear can be so intensive that it incapacitates you in other areas. And also issues of isolation, withdrawal, this now touches on the social life. And you no longer have interest in the things that used to be very enjoyable for you. You can no longer do them because it has impacted on you. Like you find that the person now is overwhelmed by these feelings, by these emotions. You don't know what to do with them. And because you don't want to remain down there, you now look for other ways of coping, because your coping system, your ability is already overwhelmed, you are shattered. So you can either go to risky behaviors like alcohol and drug abuse. You can engage even in what we call promiscuity as a result of this, because this is the only way you can be able to cope. And you find that at the end of the day, you are having a challenge. Cognitively, the person can even forget things, or you are overthinking. You find that it cuts across all the spheres of life. So for us, as a therapist or professional mental health workers, our area is to identify the symptoms that you are presenting, how long they are lasting, and how disabling they are in your life, so that we can be able to help you.
Unmute yourself.
Thank you. Yes, I forgot that one. Yes, that was so informative. Yes, there's an echo on the phone, but anyway, the thing today. Yes, so did you, Xavier or Edith, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Okay,
yes,
you see,
I have a lot to add to that.
sorry.
Who goes first? Edith, you or me?
Just go first.
Okay. So speaking about the symptoms of grief, I would say that while reacting to loss of either a loved one or whatever, there are diverse reactions that accompanies this process. So I would quickly categorize these symptoms into three. I have the mental symptoms, I have the physical, and the social. Just like Dr. Elizabeth mentioned, it's almost the same thing, but I just categorize them into these three categories for easier comprehension. So speaking about the mental symptoms, I would say that during the grieving process of losing a loved one, you see people will be experiencing anxiety, mental issues like anxiety. We have depression, we have guilt. Be like some people be like saying, "How I wish I was able to do this. He or she wouldn't have, died. How I wish I had money. I would have saved his life." So such, symptoms come up. Anger is there. We have guilt. Be like, "Oh, because I was not able to help him or her, and he died. I think I'm responsible for his death." So a lot of those, symptoms are what are often noticed during the grieving process. So speaking about the physical reactions, we will see a lot of sleeping problems like insomnia, just like Dr. Elizabeth mentioned. We have sleeping problems. We have, changing appetite. The person might, not really like to eat more or, eat very less. There's a slight change in appetite. Some people have developed illnesses during these times, illnesses that might not just come up, started having fever or malaria or what have you. So those are a few of the physical symptoms that might be observed during this time. So speaking about the social reactions, that the social problems or symptoms, we would say that they have difficulty relating with people, cope with friends, they can't go, out to parties, they can't go to church and all those. So they are socially withdrawn from their groups, from the families and the rest, and they can't really cope with their day-to-day routine, day-to-day activities. So those are few symptoms that will tell you that a social person is passing through a grieving process. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Xavier. Edith, what did you want to say?
Okay, thank you, Katinda. Thank you. What I'd say is whatever Dr. Elizabeth and Xavier are saying is very true, because I was going through grief. I experienced exactly what they are talking about. So I could feel angry, denial, and all the physical symptoms such as oversleeping, not eating. So yeah, the symptoms of grief are very real, and they can happen to anyone. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving forward, so how best can a person handle grief? Dr. Elizabeth.
Thank you. I would revisit a statement Edith gave, that we need to let our people be. Whether we are given dictation by our culture, our religion, on how long we need to stay indoors or how long we are supposed to take to mourn this particular person, healing is very, very individualized. And therefore, we cannot rush the person through. The moment you do that, you are creating more pain, more problems for the individual. And therefore, the first thing you need to do as a person is to recognize and appreciate that whatever feelings, whatever physical issues you are going through, they are normal reactions to an abnormal situation. The irritability, the anger, the guilt, the shame, the fear, the insomnia, the oversleeping for some, the lack of appetite are a very normal reaction to the abnormal event that is death. The moment you understand that, you won't judge yourself harshly. You will give yourself room to grow. The other thing that you need to do is to avoid blocking. express the pain, express your feelings. If you are angry, express your anger. We will deal with it because it will help you get in touch with your inner self and understand yourself, because all of us are unique and we cannot be at the same level or express and experience the pain in the same way. When you acknowledge your pain, it helps you not to block, and therefore you set yourself free. Because blocking, you get into a cocoon that you shut yourself down, you build walls around you. Other people cannot be able to penetrate or to reach you physically or emotionally. The other one is that you understand that grief can trigger many other different and unexpected emotions. You could be a very jolly person, but when you are grieving, you become the most hostile person people have ever seen. Or they see the other side of you, you keep wondering whether you are normal. No, accept that this grief can bring these kind of challenges. The other one is that you understand your grieving process will be unique to you. You could be a family, you have lost a father, you have lost a mother, but it is quite unique to you. One will heal faster than the other one. The other one will still be stuck somewhere. Even 3 years down the line, you are still wearing that sorrowful face that indicate that you are grieving. So it is very, very unique to you, and therefore you should not judge yourself harshly or get angry with yourself. One thing that we also forget is to seek out support from friends and other well-wishers. Accept them, let them come. It is the only challenge is what we say when we go to console these people. If you don't know what to say during that particular time, silence is the best thing that you can ever do. Support them in the chores that are there, but don't tell us that God takes and gives and also takes. This is not the right time to say that. You can say it later, but don't verbalize to the person who is going through this process. So seek out for support from friends and relatives and other well-wishers. The other one is you need to recognize the difference between your grief and depression. And I know we are going to look at this, but again, you know yourself better than anybody else. And we are going to mention the difference so that we see what are we talking about. I am also saying seek professional help if you feel you are not able to cope. Like when you have these suicidal thoughts, ideations, you want to follow the person that you have lost. Please seek support from a professional. And it is also important, if you are not able to cope as an individual, there is also the room of joining a support group. That will be very, very helpful, because you shall be looking at how well are you coping and what strategy are you using. Is it effective? Is it ineffective? Thank you.
Now, Dr. Elizabeth, something you said about a lot of people block their pain.
Yes.
Why do we do that? Because I know from experience, I used to be that person. Why do we try to block the pain or really postpone the pain? Because we know at some point that will come out in ugly ways. Maybe, like you said before, you may start drinking or doing something else to compensate. Why do you think, as a human, we block that and we try to postpone the grieving or the pain?
There are a number of reasons and factors that impede on this. The first one, we are talking about your personality. And the second one is our makeup, the way we are created. And I mentioned the free fight freeze kind of reaction. And each person reacts differently. For example, if a lion got into the room that we are in, the four of us will react very differently. The coward that I am, I will freeze. I know I am very good in freezing, not fleeing. But when I get people who want to fight me, I'm very good in fleeing because I'm not good in fighting back. And you find that you are energized according to your response. You see, when you freeze, your systems are shattered. If you get into shock, that is what happens. And therefore, if the person is still blocked, we still need to evaluate this kind of shock so that it doesn't keep the person in that cocoon forever. The other reason why we block is the way we have designed it as a culture, that men don't cry. Like in Africa, men are supposed to die like soldiers. And we say, you are not supposed to show your tears, especially when you are in presence of women, and they keep reminding you, stop crying like a woman. You are not a girl to cry. And we are bringing up our young boys. So we are telling them from an early age, it is not right for a male to cry. The other one is when we look at them, we are telling the parent, if you have lost I have lost a spouse, I am reminded I must be strong for the children. And I'm saying the children, my foot, it is me who is grieving. Let me be. So the culture dictates. The religion comes in, where you say, you should not question God. It is his choice. It is his will. So when you cry, when you say this, when you express that, you are questioning God. No, God did not create us to block. He gave us the ability to express ourselves so that we heal. He would not want us sick. He wants a healthy person who can be able to discharge the duties that we are given. Let us be. These are some of the factors that make us block. And also, again, we are also talking about the individual ability to cope with the challenges that we experience. The other one is the life experiences. Like you could have what we call multiple losses, one after the other, until you give up in life. And these also influence the way that we react.
Thank you so much. I see here Tariro Kutadza says, sometimes a person blocks self for fear of stigma. Yes, that is actually, I believe it very much.
Yes, that is very true.
Yes, and we've got Barbara Howard says, my name is Raz, prompts me. Okay, somebody else is doing something. I have learned a lot from this presentation. Thank you. Welcome, Barbara. Thank you so much for being here today. We are not finished yet, so stay tuned. Don't go away. Now, we have 2 more questions that we need to discuss before we finalize the show today. And the first one is, how do you know it's depression and not grief? You know, Dr. Elizabeth, you were saying we know ourselves, so we kind of can tell the difference between what we're going through. But sometimes maybe we're overwhelmed with grief or even depression, that we're in a dark cloud and it's impossible to know what's going on. So how can we know if we never went for help? Like we're talking, this is a situation, if I didn't go for help, how would I know that that's what's going on?
When we are grieving, we say that we go in a cycle of emotions and experiences and presentations. And you find that many a times the intensity is not that deep. But you'll find that when you are in depression, the intensity is so much you cannot be able to handle. We are saying you'll find yourself at times when you are grieving, you can even crack a joke. You can even, you experience humor. But when you are in depression, this is where the intensity, the period of that sadness is so much, you are not able to have, you are struggling with these feelings. So we are saying the intensity, the duration, and the consistency is the one that we use to tell whether it is depression or you are still grieving. And we are saying in depression, you are struggling with the intense feelings of guilt, worthlessness, limited ability to experience or anticipate any pleasure or joy. Even when you are supposed to take care of yourself and people are cracking joke, this is the time you feel more sad. And then we are saying again, the sense of worthlessness that leads to suicidal thoughts and feelings is very intense when you are into depression compared to when you are grieving.
Wow, thank you so much for that insight. Yes, I see here we've got Isiaka Ridwan Abidan. He says the insights garnered. Thank you very much. So, Xavier and Edith, did you have anything you wanted to add into that topic or that point?
Sure, Katinda. Sure, Katinda. I like giving a personal experience on this. And so I'd say that the time when I was going through grief, the thing that's made me note that I was getting into depression is that I could feel like I have no interest in life. And I was so feeling so overwhelmed, like Daktari has said, like the emotions were very intense and this profound sadness. And I was feeling like life is meaningless and very helpless at that particular time. I could sleep like almost the whole day. I couldn't eat. I was isolating myself. And I remember there's a time I was crossing the road and I was almost hit by a vehicle because like my mind was so preoccupied with the loss that nothing around me really did matter. And so at that particular time is when I knew that something is very, very wrong and I needed to seek help. Yeah, so that's how I knew that it was not grief and I was actually getting into depression. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. So if you're watching, we're talking about grief and loss, and many people know someone, a family member, a friend who's probably going through grief or who's even going through grief right now. So if you're watching and in Australia, we've got a hotline number. The hotline number in Australia is 1300 845 745. Now, if you're in Africa or wherever else you are, please find out what is your hotline and just please call that number or seek help, because this is all about awareness. We're letting you know that we are here to support you, to encourage you, and to make sure that you seek help when things are really dark for you. Now, Xavier, did you have something to add onto that as well? We can't hear you.
Okay, sorry, I just put on my mic now. So I have a lot to add to that, though I still have to build on what Edith has said and what Dr. Elizabeth has said as well. So, both of them really gave great points. So I will still add to that, during the grieving process, what will distinct or what really distinguish grief from depression is, the intensity of the emotions we are feeling and then the one we are expressing. So speaking about fatigue, so much fatigue, there's a threshold to everything happening, to all the reactions we have. But when once it surpasses the threshold, it becomes abnormal. So when once the fatigue is just so much, the insomnia, the inability to sleep, persisting for more than 2 weeks clinically, and then indecisiveness and all those stuff. You find no pleasure in life at all. Just like Edith said, the life turned to be worthless. You look at yourself and you feel there's nothing good that could come out of you. So at that point, we say that depression is setting, and then we or the person involved should look out for help. So also, sibbing on that, I would say that also inability to experience enjoyment, just like Dr. Elizabeth said, while grieving, you can still crack some jokes and then smile. But it's in a situation whereby, there is no excitement, no enjoyment, even when the best gift, something you ever like, something you ever appreciate is given to you, you find no pleasure in it. At that point, there is something that needs to be done. Depression is setting immediately. And then you see people detaching themselves from, the family members, from people around them, and then isolating themselves. Some go that far to, go inside the bush to stay all alone, just not to see anyone around them. So at that point, depression is setting, and then professional help should be sought for at that moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Xavier. We've got Isiaka here making a comment. He says the Global Youth Mental Health Awareness always hosts great and intellectual speakers. God bless everyone. Thank you so much, Isiaka. We appreciate you very much. So now this is the question that we need people. If you're watching, you need to really listen to this part. When do we seek help? And where can we seek help? Dr. Elizabeth.
Thank you, KATINDA. We are saying that help is available for all people who are going through grief. Unfortunately, we never know when we need help. In some countries, you find that they have a hotline or a call center where they can call for these. But like in my country, in some parts of Africa, we don't have these hotlines. But you can always reach out to a therapist. And the first signal that you need to seek help is you check your medical or your health issues. You have not eaten for 3-4 days and you are dehydrated, or somebody has diarrhea for 3-4 days, you are not able to take water, you need medical attention. If you have these nausea and there are people who keep having these they are lightheaded for a very long time, you need to go to the hospital so that again the doctor can tell you what you are supposed to do. All in all, we are saying that when depression sets in, depression is a more serious mental health issue that needs medical attention. We don't ignore it because we said the intensity and the feelings that accompany it. That feeling of sadness, you have no sense of living, you become hopeless and helpless. This leads to suicidal ideation, and therefore you need a mental health professional next to you. We are also saying there is the normal grief and what we call the complicated or pathological grief. And here we said earlier that we cannot say this is the specific period of time that we are supposed to be mourning or grieving. But you find that this person has consistently prepared the meal for the spouse for the last 5 days, 5 years, or 3 years, 2 years, and you are living like he is there. It is only that he is not present. We need to take care of you. You need a mental health professional to take care of you. Again, when you feel that like for the period of a long period of time, you are not enjoying anything in life, any social activity, anything that you used to do, you have lost interest in everything. You need to seek help because for us, it is an indicator there is a problem. We are also saying that when you have the thoughts of harming yourself, this is also a time, it should be a red flag and you need to seek help. And then you have the inability to stop blaming yourself. If it were not for me, this person would not have died. If I did this, the person would have lived. So at the end of the day, you find that you are blaming yourself throughout. These are indicators that you need help. And Edith has shared her personal experience where she slept longer than usual, and she is not under the influence of any drugs or substances. There are those who also don't sleep and they are not under the influences of something. When this persists for a long period of time, you need to seek medical attention. So as we said earlier, the intensity of these experiences is the one that determines whether you are going to get help or not. And also remember, it is individualized. Therefore, one person may be experiencing insomnia while the other one is experiencing is oversleeping. One may lose appetite when another one is eating more than they used to eat. So again, you need to look at, and that is why I started by saying, you know yourself better. How are you feeding? Are you overfeeding this time or are you underfeeding? And you are the only one who can explain this one to the doctor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. In the interest of time, I think Edith and Xavier, do you have just one short thing to add to that?
Yeah, sure, KATINDA. So seek help if you're feeling like life isn't worth living. If you're feeling like you have a difficulty trusting other people. Also, if you're unable to perform your normal daily duties. And also if you're feeling like you're numb and disconnected from people. And if like you feel just like you have no meaning and like you're helpless, it's important to seek help. So help can be found from professional counselors or therapists. You can also talk to friends and to your relatives about how you're feeling. It really helps a lot. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Xavier, did you have something quick to add?
Yeah, sure, I have. So I would say that just like Dr. Elizabeth mentioned, once there is any societal once it sets in, at that point, the victim or the sufferer should definitely seek for help. So, once there is more depression or when the person is more depressed, yeah, sure, he has to seek out for help. And then in Nigeria here, we have a whole lot of platforms where we reach out to counselors, psychologists, and psychiatrists. Social media plays a very great role in this. All through Facebook, we have mental health subgroups. We have counseling groups all over, spread all over Facebook, LinkedIn. We have a lot of them. So you can just, I believe we are in the modern age, and I believe more percentage of persons living into into this world, have access to mobile phones, and probably they have opened an account with Facebook. So I think just search out for counseling, all the counseling platforms, mental health platforms on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. You will actually find one, and through there, you can actually locate a counselor or a therapist that you could really talk to, and then you could really have or sort for help with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. That was so amazing. So before we conclude, I know there's so many ways to protect and manage your mental health and well-being. So what is one thing each of you do for yourself on a daily basis to check in with your mental health? Dr. Elizabeth.
Well, as a professional, it is my responsibility to take care of myself. So one of the things that I do is that I must ensure that I am scheduled the workload that I can manage to handle. And as a result of this, I know still the precarious, we call it the vicarious trauma can set in, burnout, and also issue of other issues may arise. And therefore, I seek supervision every time so that I am able to deal with myself and also handle my clients in a more professional way.
Thank you. Thank you. Edith, what's one thing you do for yourself every day? What's one thing you do for yourself every day?
Okay, so these days I ensure that I wake up very early and just take time to myself, like pray so that I can plan for my day properly. And I also talk to my friends. I also talk to my family. Anytime I feel that something is not right, or anytime I'm triggered, especially when it comes to matters of grief, anytime I feel triggered, I ensure that I talk to someone about it. And so I'm able to find help. And I also do a lot of meditation and physical exercise. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Xavier, what do you do on a daily basis to check in with your mental health?
Okay, as a professional, I always seek out to balance my life, both in terms of work and my other responsibilities. So each morning I make out a schedule of what I'll be doing throughout the day, and then in as much as I accomplish one, I will just have to make a tick. And then one thing for sure, that always guide me is that even though I'm not able to accomplish all these during the day, but as long as I'm able to accomplish 50% or 60% of them, I'm okay. I don't have to stress on myself or kill myself over it, because I know the frustration is really bad. So if I leave myself and I think I have to accomplish all these within the day, some days you actually run out of time, and then more exigencies, unforeseen exigencies set in, and you cannot accomplish that. Then you might actually fall into depression. So being able to accomplish 50-60%, I'm okay with that. So I go on with my normal life, and then everything is okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I see again, we've got another comment. I love your elocutions and style of moderation. You're an amazing, great woman. Thank you so much, Isiaka. We appreciate you a lot. Now, for me, I do a lot of different things, but the one thing that I swear by is gratitude. I wake up every morning and make sure, I check in with my body to see that it's functioning. And I'm so grateful, and I say the word thank you, thank you, thank you, because if you're not grateful, then what is life about? So I'm very big on having a gratitude journal, always writing what you're grateful for on a daily basis without fail, because that grounds me every single day. So on conclusion, we've been talking about grief and loss, and there's been so much insight into this topic. So where can people find Dr. Elizabeth? Where can they find you?
Thank you, Dr. Elizabeth. That is, I can be found at Safe Care Haven. This is a treatment and rehabilitation center for alcohol and drug abuse and some mental health conditions in Kenya, in one of the counties known as Kiambu. And you can get us on Facebook, or those who are able to write, our number is 0722 615045. That is where you can find me. I offer both outpatient and inpatient services for mental health.
Thank you. Edith, where can people find you?
Okay, people can find me on all the social media platforms as Edith Wanyonyi. Yeah, that's where I advocate for mental health issues. And also, I saw a question. Someone had asked that where can people find GYMHA in Ghana? So I think the best way is to email jude@gymha.org,
Okay.
or also email Global Youth Mental Health Awareness.
Okay,
Yeah,
what about
thank you.
Xavier? Where can people find you?
Okay, people can always find Xavier both virtually and physically. So virtually, you search for all social media handles, Xavier Effiong. You actually find him there. That way, he advocates for mental issues and advocates for sound mental health. So physically, Xavier can be found at Womal Manor Foundations here in Akwa Ibom State. That's where we offer psychological treatment to people with mental issues and many mental illnesses. So through those two routes, you can find Xavier Effiong. Thank you.
Thank you. So if you're watching and you would like to know more about the Global Youth Mental Health Awareness Show, or really you have any questions, please feel free to contact Jude, and that's at jude@gymha.org. And also feel free to email, message Dr. Elizabeth, Edith, Xavier. If you have any questions, they'll be happy to help, happy to guide you, happy to give you direction. That's why we do this show, so we can give you more information and help you, support you, encourage you to seek help if you need the help. So thank you so much, Dr. Elizabeth, for joining us today. Thank you, Edith. Thank you, Xavier. You were amazing. Thank you so much for the insights. I'm sure our viewers will be delighted today because they have a lot of information to take in, and also a lot of questions. I'm sure they do too. And thank you, viewers, for being a fabulous audience and for watching the Global Youth Mentor Show. And in the next fortnight, our topic is going to be about women. It's how women can overcome abuse and step into their power. So stay tuned. Until next time, stay blessed.